New ocean formed in Africa. Are these the signs of the end times? Imagine waking up one day to find out the ground beneath your feet is splitting apart, literally tearing open like a piece of paper, and water starts rushing in to form a brand new ocean. Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, guess what? It's happening right now in Africa. And some folks are whispering it might just be tied to an ancient prophecy, straight out of the Bible. You heard me. A new ocean, a massive crack, and maybe even a sign of the end times. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll be asking, is this God's plan unfolding before our eyes? And if it is, what comes next may affect every continent on Earth. A crack opened up in Ethiopia so fast it stunned everyone. In just days, a 35-mile-long rip tore through the earth, 8 meters wide in some spots. That's like if your street split open wider than a school bus. Scientists rushed in, scratching their heads, because this wasn't supposed to happen so quick. Could this sudden shift spiral out of control before anyone can react? They said it was the African continent breaking apart, something called a rift. But could this rift be the very same one foretold by prophets thousands of years ago? And if it is, are we standing on the brink of a disaster we can't reverse? And if the evidence lines up, what we're heading toward might be far worse than anything we've seen before. But what if I told you some people believe this isn't just geology? What if this crack is a clue, a foreshadowing of something way bigger, something written about thousands of years ago? Hold that thought, because we're just getting started. What's happening beneath Africa could unleash a chain of events no one can stop. Get ready, because what's unfolding underground could soon be impossible to contain. Here, the African continent is being pulled apart by the movement of tectonic plates. The Nubian plate to the west and the Somali plate to the east are drifting away from each other at a rate of about half an inch per year. This gradual separation is causing the land to stretch, thin, and eventually break apart. But what if the land isn't the only thing about to break? As we go deeper, you'll see how this crack may be only the first break in a series of global collapses. At the heart of this rifting process lies the Afar Triangle, one of the hottest and most inhospitable places on Earth. It's here that the signs of a continent splitting are most evident. Geologists have long studied this region, intrigued by the possibility that East Africa could eventually break away, forming a new ocean basin. But recent events have accelerated this timeline. Could something be driving this acceleration? And could that force bring devastation far sooner than expected? Stay with me, because what's coming next could prove that we're running out of time faster than we thought. As the land continues to separate, it's anticipated that waters from the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden will flood into the Rift Valley, giving birth to a new ocean and creating a separate landmass that includes parts of Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, and Tanzania. But could this new land be part of a divine plan with a much darker purpose? Because as we peel back the layers, the truth may be more terrifying than comforting. What if this creation leads not to life, but to judgment? And don't go anywhere, because in a moment, we'll explore how this event could tie directly into judgment itself. The immediate effects of this geological activity are being felt by communities living along the rift. Homes and roads have been damaged, and there's growing concern about the safety and livelihoods of people in the affected areas. But what happens when this crack becomes too big to stop? Could entire cities vanish overnight in the chaos? And we haven't even touched on the worst-case scenario. That's coming next, and it's something no one wants to face, but everyone needs to see. such dramatic natural events often lead to speculation about their significance beyond the scientific realm. Some turn to the Bible for answers, wondering if these occurrences are signs of the prophesied end times. And if they are, what's the next disaster waiting just around the corner? Are we prepared for the ripple effects that may shake the world? Are earthquakes and changes in the earth a sign of the end times? We're about to dive into that exact question, and once we do, you will understand why many believe we're standing on the edge of something massive. The Bible is a history book, unlike any other available in any public library. Its history starts with the Earth's creation and ends with the world's end. This is the only history book that covers such a broad range of events on planet Earth, partially because no one was present at the beginning to witness and document it, and therefore, no one can write the beginning of our world authoritatively. We are the only people in the world who know how it will all end. That is unique. But are we ignoring the very signs that tell us it's already beginning? Could our complacency cost us everything? The Lord did not reveal the future to His followers to satisfy their curiosity. He showed it to prepare them so that they would not be surprised when it arrived, and that they would not misinterpret it. Are we about to be caught off guard despite every warning? And if we are, will there be time to react? Be grateful that Jesus was so forthright in sharing the future for us. But did He also reveal a hidden clue we've overlooked until now? What if missing this clue means missing the final chance to prepare? Soon, we'll reveal one key sign most people overlook, a sign that could make the difference between readiness and regret. People ask, are we in the end times? Or have we already passed the point of no return? And if so, how do we survive what's coming next? However, the Bible talks of the last days, and we have been in those last days for 2,000 years. The last days, they started at Pentecost, where the first prophecy of the last days was fulfilled. Every Christian generation should live to be ready for the Lord's return. The Bible is a book full of predictions. Its pages contain 735 predictions about the future. A prediction can be found in 1/4 of the Bible's chapters. From beginning to end, it is basically a prophetic text, though some books focus more on predictions than others. 596 of the 735 predictions have indeed occurred and have literally come true according to the scripture prediction. So, 81% of all Bible prophecies have already come true, and some of those prophecies were made centuries before the case. It doesn't take much confidence to believe that the remaining 19% will happen as well. That's a very high score. The Bible has proved 100% right for every prediction that could have been fulfilled by now. Of the rest, most of them are concerned with the actual return of Jesus and what follows after that. How many of these predictions remain to come true before Jesus returns? The answer is about 20, and we watching to see those happen first before we look for the Lord's return. But what if those signs are already here, hiding in plain sight? Could the next catastrophic event strike without warning? Jesus told us to watch and pray. What do we watch? We cannot stand still and watch the clouds to wait for Him to appear. That is not what He meant. He meant, keep an eye on what's going on in the world and see what signs I gave you to help you prepare. Signals are the signs. So let's look at Matthew chapter 24, where the disciples asked Him, "What will be the signs or signals of your return?" What would we do if we don't know when it's going to happen? Or worse, what if we only realize the time when it's already too late? Could that moment of realization come during global chaos? To their inquiry, Jesus gave a direct and unambiguous answer. We can thank God that He responded in such a straightforward manner. In the book of Revelation, He gives a much more detailed and comprehensive response, But here he gives a rundown of the signs that will precede his arrival. The disciples approached Jesus secretly as he was seated on the Mount of Olives. Matthew 24 says, "Later Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately and said, 'Tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?' Jesus told them, 'Don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah. They will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. While the rivers in Africa are not caused by massive earthquakes, the Bible tells us that there will be great earthquakes in the end. Now, in that passage, he gave 4 distinct signs of his coming. One of the 4 signs is already there, while the other 3 are not. That is why I say we are in the beginning of the end times. But how long before we move from beginning to the point of no return? And when that moment hits, will there be any way back? So, what exactly are these 4 signs he gave us? The first is clearly disasters in the world, and he mentions, for example, wars, famines, and earthquakes. These are certainly happening, but they have been happening for over 2,000 years. They are getting more intense. So we certainly are in this first sign. There are already wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, and famine. Earthquake in the original Greek is seismos. The basic sense of the word is shaking. It can refer to the shaking of a storm on a sea. However, it mostly occurs in the New Testament when speaking of an earthquake. Luke 21:11, a parallel passage to Matthew. There will be great earthquakes. So these are not ordinary earthquakes that our Lord forecasts, but great or huge ones. So great that they cause a great number of deaths worldwide. Could an earthquake of biblical proportions strike next? And where? What if your city is at the epicenter of the next shake? Remember, earthquakes are just one sign. There are 3 other signs. So we certainly are in this first sign. There are already wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, and famine. But which of these will trigger the final event foretold in prophecy? And when it does, how will the world respond, if at all? Jesus says, "Don't be deceived." He says that again and again, all the way through. As we get nearer to the end, the danger is deception, both inside and outside the church. In this case, he says, from false Christs, false messiahs, people who will take advantage of the turmoil of natural disasters to present themselves as saviors. There are well-known examples of people who pretended to be saviors and led people into desert locations, only to end in tragedy. However, there are many false Christs, false saviors, who claim to be the promised deliverer from all our troubles. The more problems there are, the more false deliverers there would be. But, as Jesus advises us, don't be alarmed. Don't be worried when you learn of a new war, a new tragedy, or a new famine breaking out. He said something astonishing. These are painful events, but they are not pangs of death. They are birth pains. So when you read of disasters in the media, these are the pains that mean something new is about to be born. But what exactly is being born? And are we ready for it? Could it be the birth of something far more terrifying than we imagined? This should completely change our attitude. We know what the world is coming to. We should not be alarmed or dismayed, not as worried as the world will be about these things, because something's coming that will shake even the strongest believers. Will your faith withstand the pressure or crumble in fear? Disasters in the world are the pain of birth, in a new world that is to be born. Therefore, we are very different. We have sympathy for those who are suffering disasters, and hopefully we express it in help. But in our hearts we are not alarmed, we are hopeful. We are looking for a new birth of a new world, and therefore we are not dismayed or depressed by all the problems in the world. In short, Jesus' advice to us would be not to panic, not to be disturbed, but even to rejoice and say, "These are all signs of something new happening." The second sign. The second sign of his coming is not in the world, but in the church. What will happen when the church itself becomes the battleground? Could internal division be the church's greatest threat yet? Disasters in the world are the first sign. The church, not the world, is the second sign of his coming. The first warning is disasters around the world. The second is changes in the church. Just as he divided the first sign into three parts, wars, earthquakes, and famines, he divides the second sign into three parts, all of which occur within the church. The first is persecution, that we will be hated in every nation. The second aspect of this sign would be a significant reduction in the church's size. Most people's love will grow cold, but will yours survive the pressure that's coming? When tested, will you stand firm or fall away? When the whole church is under strain, many nominal Christians, if not all true Christians, would leave. Under the burdens of universal persecution, their love would grow cold. That's a very depressing sign. The big surprise in the third part of the sign is that the gospel will be preached to every racial group. The third part of the sign is that the gospel will be proclaimed. A smaller, purified church would have a greater impact on the planet. That is exactly what Jesus is implying. False prophets can be a source of deceit in all of this. We are aware of the teachings of false prophets. When there is no peace, they teach peace. Rather than being a source of challenge, their message is one of comfort. "It's all right. It won't happen," they'll say. "All is fine. Everything is fantastic. The church is in good hands." That is a false prediction. They may be to blame for the large number of people who would leave the church at that time. Now, Jesus' advice is to keep going. Don't give in to these false prophets. Whoever perseveres to the end will be saved. When that sign occurs, when all aspects of the church are despised by the world, that is Jesus' advice to all Christians. Why should that be the case? The answer is that wheat and tares grow together, and the closer they get to full maturity, the more tension there will be between them. So it's only natural that Christians will be under a lot of pressure in the end. Christians are social misfits, so there would be hatred. This world does not belong to us. Our citizenship is in the heavenly realms. We are unique, and it is because of our uniqueness that hate can arise. But will you still stand when being faithful means being hated? Will the fear of persecution silence even the boldest voices? Since Jesus was so different from everyone else, he drew hate against himself. John 15:19. If you were of the world, it would love you as its own. Instead, the world hates you, because you are not of the world. But I have chosen you out of the world. It's not fun to be despised. Third sign. That takes us to the third sign of the end times, which is Jerusalem's distress. Geographically, it will be very limited. In this passage, Jesus quotes Daniel's prophecies, and there is a character in Daniel's prophecies who is referred to as the abomination of desolation. Daniel mentions it 3 times. What does it all mean? And what role does this abomination play in the final judgment? What's the big deal? It's about a human being, a man who establishes himself in the very city of God, calls himself God, and refuses to accept anyone else's will above his own. A tyrant whose arrival will have global ramifications, but who will be centered in Jerusalem, the city of God, the holy place. Then Jesus says that the fourth sign of his coming will come immediately after that. So we shall know when he is coming. We shall be ready. When that sign comes, there will be no danger of false prophets or false messiahs. There will be no deception. It will be too quick. What will happen is that all natural light will be switched off. The sun will go dark. The stars will fall. There are many predictions of this all the way through the Bible. Isaiah predicts it. The heavens will be rolled up like a carpet. All the stars of heaven will be dissolved. The skies will be rolled up like a scroll, and all their stars will fall like withered leaves from the vine, like foliage from the fig tree. The natural light will be gone, leaving only artificial light to illuminate the earth. What is happening? What is going on? People may ask. This is it, Christians will exclaim. The sun, stars, and moon stop shining right before that happens. God turns off the lights of heaven to prepare for the blaze of light from the lightning that will mark his return. Then he comes on the clouds back to planet Earth, and we meet him. We are not meeting in an earthly stadium because there isn't one large enough to accommodate such a large crowd. We'll reach him in the air, and that'll suffice. Isn't that a fantastic prospect? When you see all these things, you know he is at the gates, just about to walk through, he says. Then Jesus gives a very simple statement about a fig tree, and this is where many Christians have gone astray. He says, "Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near." Jesus is telling us that when you notice all these events happen, you know that we are there. Now, that analogy of the fig tree is not an allegory. It is a straightforward analogy from everyday experiences, such as Jesus often presented in his teaching. You see the fig tree doing this, you say the summer is coming, and it will come. In the same style, when you notice these four signs, you know that summer is coming. Sadly, people have read it as an allegory. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's day. In those days before the flood, the people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat. People didn't realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. Two men will be working together in the field. One will be taken, the other left. Two women will be grinding flour at the mill. One will be taken, the other left. So you too must keep watch, for you don't know what day your Lord is coming. Understand this. If a homeowner knew exactly when a burglar was coming, he would keep watch and not permit his house to be broken into. You also must be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when least expected. A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns and finds that the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth, the master will put that servant in charge of all he owns. But what if the servant is evil and thinks, "My master won't be back for a while," and he begins beating the other servants, partying, and getting drunk? The master will return unannounced and unexpected, and he will cut the servant to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 24:37-51. In the remainder of this sermon, Jesus goes on to three parables, which are the wise virgins whose lamps were still burning when the bridegroom came, the foolish bridesmaids whose lamps had gone out, and the parable of the wise and foolish virgins. They had gone away to try to get some oil, but they had missed the bridegroom's arrival and thus were unable to attend the wedding. Then he moved on to the parable of the talents, in which some people received 10 talents, others 5, and then someone received none. The master left and returned, asking, "Now, what have you done with the talents I've left with you?" "I've got another 10, the man with 10 said. "I've got another 5, the man with 5 said. "I haven't done anything about it," said the man who had 1. "I buried it, because I know you're a hard man who reaps where he hasn't sown and wants payment from me." What a horrible thing to say. We look at what Jesus said and what the Master said to him after that. The final passage is not a parable, but rather a straight prediction involving an analogy of sheep and goats. He finished that parable with dividing nations, everybody, and telling them why he divided them, because those who are on his left hand are those who ignored Christ in Christians. Insofar as they didn't help the least of these, his brothers, they were doing it not to him. But to the people on his right, he said, "You saw Christ in my brethren, and inasmuch as you did it to the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me." He is not dividing people into those who did philanthropy and those who didn't. The key is the meaning of the word brethren. When Christ said brethren, he always meant his own followers. "Go and tell my brethren that I have risen from the dead." In the teaching of Jesus, brethren is a key word. It means those who follow me. He is simply saying, whatever you have done to Christians, or not done for them, was done to me or for me, or not for me. Their attitude toward Christ is revealed by their attitude to Christians, and that is the principle on which they are divided. Now let us consider all that we have seen in the passage. First, there is a warning that nobody has God's diary, that not even Jesus knew the date of his return. Angels didn't know it, and no man knew it. We should have a healthy ignorance of the date of his return. Nearer the time, as we watch for the signs, we will know. Mark 13:32. No one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Did you notice that one word appeared in all 3 parables? The parable of the home, the parable of the virgins, and the parable of the talents? The householder was a long time returning. The bridegroom was a long time coming. And the person who gave the talents was gone for a long time. He is looking for your faithfulness when he was away a long time. That is what he wants. He will say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord." There will be this separation in his coming between the faithful who have continued to do what he has left them to do, those who have every day remembered that he is coming back, and who have kept to the job and endured the suffering and been his good and faithful servants, and those who, because he has not come soon, have fallen into bad ways. Their lamp has gone out, and they no longer shine for Jesus, and they have buried their talents. In the book of Proverbs, we are warned that where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. Proverbs 29:18, NIV or perish, KJV. There are 2 main objectives of the end-time church. God has in view as he brings about the restoration of the church. Let's look first at God's purpose to restore unity to the church, or bring the church into unity. The church has a task to complete before Jesus can come back. Matthew 24:14 reads, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." All 4 Gospels conclude with this commission to the apostles, and through them to the Church Universal. Disciples are to be made from every nation. It is God's desire and intention to have within his family humans from every tribe and language and people and nation. Revelation 5 verse 9. and they sang a new song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation." Revelation 7:9. After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. Let us examine the Great Commission of Jesus Christ to his disciples after his resurrection. Jesus came and spoke to them, the disciples, saying, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age.'" Matthew 28:18-20. There is a critical word here. Therefore. We must never ignore the word therefore when we find it in Scripture. When you find a therefore in the Bible, you need to ask what it's there for. Jesus says, "All authority has been given to me. Go therefore." Why therefore? The authority was given by God the Father to Jesus, the Son, after his death and resurrection. Jesus, in turn, here transmits that authority to his disciples. In other words, he is saying, "All authority was given to me. Now you go and exercise that authority on my behalf. The authority is vested in my name. As you go in my name, you have my authority." Authority is only effective when it is exercised. A man can have authority and never use it, and nobody would ever know that he had that authority. So it is with the authority Jesus Christ has given us. It is given to us, but it is only useful if we use it. The only way the world will acknowledge the authority given to Jesus Christ as a result of his death and resurrection is for us, his followers, to exercise it on his behalf. Otherwise, the world is unaware of what Jesus has accomplished. It does not know that the Father has committed all authority to the Son. Only through our obedience to the commission of Jesus can the world ever be brought face to face with the fact that there is a King of kings and a Lord of lords, whose name is Jesus, and all authority is given to him. We are accountable for demonstrating this to the world. As we obey Jesus' order and carry his message, he will validate it with the spiritual signs he promised and testify to his own authority in the word he has committed to us. There is one other reason why he says, "All authority is given to me. Go therefore." As a result, go therefore. There are several areas where traveling is extremely difficult. There are governments on the planet that oppose or refuse to preach the gospel. Today, there are many locked doors. But Jesus responds, "If you will go and follow me, remember that I have the authority. If you speak to me about it, I'll open those closed doors for you. I'll find a path where there isn't one. I will make it possible for you to follow me, if you are willing to do so." The church's safety and progress are dependent on bold, optimistic outreach. That means not being afraid, not focusing solely on survival, and not hiding in a cave with some hoarded groceries. Bold, constructive outreach in obedience to the Lord is the path to safety and success. When we view the harvest from God's standpoint, we see that the initiative in world affairs is with the church. Seldom do God's people seem to realize that. The initiative is not about politicians, scientists, or military commanders, but about the people of God, the church. God will never allow the initiative to pass into other hands, while the church is here as the representative of his Son, Jesus Christ. Thy second task is the unity in the church. We must have the right relationship with the ministries, the authorities that Jesus establishes in His church. This will set us in the right relationship with our fellow believers. We will then speak the truth in love. And as we speak the truth in love, under discipline and authority, we will cease to be spiritually dull infants. We are growing up into Christ. He is always the ultimate objective. We become members of this whole body, which is fitted and held together by what every joint supplies, where every individual part does its proper job. As a result, the body naturally grows out of its own inner resources and life. It achieves the building up of itself in love,